My initial thoughts around all of this stuff, honestly, were that Google might shut AI down. AI will be bigger than social media. Like, it will change society more than social media. You know, it's like every industry can use AI. Like, Google can optimize their servers with AI.
Insightful, head blown, amazing. As part of the LinkedIn Creator Program, my mission over the next 6 weeks is to create a podcast series where I interview other agency founders on exactly what it takes to build a successful agency. Join me as I set out to understand how they think, hopefully learn some tips and hear their stories. This is Confessions of an Agency Owner. Today's guest is Chris Branch, one of the founders of Seedly. With close to 100,000 impressions on LinkedIn and his company managing pages that achieve millions of impressions every single month, Chris is at the forefront of using AI for marketing. We discuss what this means for the future of design, video, copywriting, and much more, and why it's important to start exploring these new technologies now ahead of the curve. I found this conversation fascinating. In fact, most of it blew my mind. I'm sure you will too. Have a listen. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Very well, and you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you, mate. What are you drinking today, first of all?
Well, had lots of water.
Okay, it is water
I'm
then,
I'm already, however many this is, litres in.
Okay.
2 litres in this morning, so...
Because last time we chatted, I mistook
not
your Fanta for a Beaver Town, and the second time it was water for a vodka. So.
Well, you put anything in one of these cups,
Well,
can't you?
I
If
suppose,
it's not
yeah.
transparent, you wouldn't know what was in it. I could have
A little
anything.
bit of whiskey
Rum.
in there today.
Yeah, Irish coffee. Why not?
Nice. It's afternoon though, I suppose. I'll let you. And good hoodie, strong hoodie, mate.
Hey!
Love it. Cool. So today, Chris, what I really want to talk to you about is obviously this podcast is all about helping other agency owners and some of the challenges we face. And one of the biggest challenges is obviously marketing our agencies. We've got to stand out, etc. And you obviously, you know, the stuff you're doing with AI imagery and things like that at the moment is brilliant. And what I really wanted to understand was, like, you know, how big is that going to get? Is that something that's going to be able to help us create content in future and create our own, you know, unique content? And also, you know, if you can just tell us a bit really about how you create that stuff in the first place.
Definitely. To answer the first question, it's just scratching the surface. We are nowhere near what this is going to be. This is the very early stages. In fact, actually, I got the alpha rollout in about March of this year, and the beta rollout was only a few months after that.
It's just mid-journey, yeah?
Yeah, well, this is to a lot of them, actually.
Okay.
DALL-E 2 and Stable Diffusion. There's loads of these tools across the board. They've all got fundamentally very different business models, and some of them are coming from people that have formerly done big things. So, for example, the Midjourney founder actually was a big Silicon Valley person already, because he had a company called Leap Motion.
Okay.
And they made like technology that was using cameras actually, and like sensors and stuff. So they were already very well established. And so, yeah, going back though to what you were saying, like these tools are just scratching the surface, and they are already extraordinarily useful for any agency owner, and they're just going to become more and more and more useful as time goes by. In April, it was just a basic art tool, and honestly, I don't think clients would have taken it that seriously. It was good for mock-ups and mood boards and stuff like that, just to give them different ideas of what you could create and do it very, very at scale. So imagine that you're an agency owner that takes briefs, like creative briefs, and the brief was to create an advertisement in, you know, let's say for Burger King, and the brief was something really fun, like Burger King in the Middle Ages or something like this. Then through Midjourney, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, whichever AI software you have, you could essentially text to prompt. So you type in a line of text that you'd like to see. Let's say it was a Burger King employee wearing, you know, Barack style Renaissance clothing in the Middle Ages. Then you'd be able to go through the different AI tools that you have and see their different outputs, because they are very different. Yeah. DALL-E 2 is much more photorealistic, and Midjourney is much more artistic. And so you'll get different types and styles out of these, but you can essentially just submit that to your prospect or client if they're already a client. If they're a prospect, then obviously it's great if you come to the table with 10 suggestions and not one, because a graphic designer would only have the time to make one.
Yeah.
Or two, maybe, in the time that an AI tool will give you a whole bunch of different assets to show the client. And then what is frustrating at the moment, although I'm going really far on your first question, so I'm not gonna batter on about this, but this is it leads segues into the next bit, which is repeatability and continuity is not quite there yet. So, for example, you can't get the same character twice out of AI. So advertising, it's very difficult because obviously it's more of a mood board in that sense. You know what I mean? Like you can show someone a certain palette and style, and then you can go and create things off the back of that because they chose that. But it's just showing them an example of it first.
So it's more for concepts, would you say?
Yeah, it's speed of concepts right now. I'd say that's its best use case. Like it's not the finished thing. Although Midjourney version 4, which is the latest update that only came out on Monday, is very close to ready to go images that could be used in advertising. Could even be put in billboards.
Do you own these then, Chris? Or is it your IP or is it their IP? So you can't really...
That's a really good question. Nobody owns them. It's actually technically open source.
Okay.
In the UK, and this is what's going to happen, ultimately, it's so undefined right now. It's a grey area that regionally everyone will make their own rules for this. Like in the UK, only a human can own copyright. No machine, no algorithm, no automation, no AI can ever copyright anything. So unless that rule changes, ultimately, you'll never be able to copyright any of these images. There's a deeper question though. How could you ever? Essentially what Midjourney did is it scraped 10 million images off the internet. It didn't license them. Right. They're Disney images. They're from Marvel. They're from everywhere. They're people's faces. They're celebrities. There are a lot of intellectual property in that stuff. Now, because they were never licensed in the beginning, they could never be used for commercial purposes at the end. Unless the AI is changing these into unique images, but then when the AI does that, you can't claim copyright to them. But there's a lot of loopholes in this, as you can already imagine, Chris. If I imported this image into Photoshop and added my own little touches and stuff, that's human-based creativity. So then can I claim that secondary altered image of Midjourney? I don't know. I've actually talked to a few lawyers about this because I've seen people selling these as NFTs.
Well, I was going to say, is it not something that you can... Because obviously it's quite a skill, isn't it? Typing in the prompts that deliver the image.
Yeah, it's talking to AI. And it's actually one of my favorite things to talk about is that it's a blend of all digital skills prior. You need a bit of SEO knowledge. You need a bit of keyword spinning.
Old school SEO knowledge, though, because it's completely
old school
spamming keyword tech, isn't it?
Well, you remember the joke memes like pub, bar, tavern, all the different variations for the word bar, basically, that people used to use. Now imagine that, but in AI prompting. You need to know those things, and that's a very useful part to it. Obviously, art direction knowledge is very useful, knowing people's styles, knowing contexts, imagination, because obviously this tool is so good now that actually the differentiator is how creative you are in prompting it. Rather than being accurate, like it used to be PromptCraft in version 2 and 3. This is before the latest update, where it's the larger the sort of keyword string, right, the more accurate the image would become. In version 4, it's very much turned the tables. It's deadly accurate with a very short prompt. Like you can type 2 words into it, and it will be really, really accurate. So you have to differentiate yourself through the imagination. And talking to AI is a really interesting skill because it's not like anything else.
But it is a skill, though, isn't it? Right? I mean,
massively.
How many?
It's a blank page, Chris. That's what people don't get.
Yeah.
It's just like Photoshop. Opening a blank Photoshop. Where do you go? Where's the first thing you go? It's not. I think people misunderstand that about this tool. They think it's an easy cheat code hack. It's like, no, if you've got no inspiration, no imagination, you'll get nothing out of this. It's just enabling you to be more prolific. That's all it is. It's like, get your ideas out in seconds, not 100 hours of Photoshop to create that image, because that may, change over time, and you know, that's just not the output you'd want, essentially. Text to video is about to come. It's not quite here yet. The first white paper has just been launched, though, and by no other than Google themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, my initial thoughts around all of this stuff, honestly, were that Google might shut AI down. Because in the same way I just described to you that Midjourney used 10 million unlicensed of their images, you might think, you know, well, we own these images. No way. You know, this is just not happening. You're reverse engineering our IP and stuff. Turns out they're ahead of the game. They are literally the biggest AI investors in the world. And they're going to be the first ones to do text to video. They're doing this diffusion model, it's called, from 2D to 3D to animation. And they're even doing like characters where you can imagine you create one 3D character. You can place it anywhere in a virtual world, in like a game, anywhere. Like,
so is this them slipping into future metaverse type stuff, do you think?
100%. I think that's why everyone's doubling down on it.
Yeah,
honestly, yeah, because it's totally metaverse, but it's all Web3. It's NFTs, it's art, it's decentralized creativity. It's everything that you sort of imagine Web3 to be as a KPI. You know, where it's like a lot more people have access to it. It's also going to be like blockchain, and that it'll all be traceable. It'll all be open source. These are the new sort of things of the future of the technologies that are coming out. Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing at the moment is seeing that Stable Diffusion, which is not as good as Midjourney right now, but it's very, very close, you know, as in like you'd still get really great assets out of it, is basically free. Like they're really open sourcing it. Like they're making it so that their API is available to anyone. So you can build your own tool on top of it.
Oh, wow.
You know, you can do all, and there's 1,000 tools already built on this open API, one of which is Photoshop. So now Photoshop has a little Stable Diffusion plugin that, again, if you're a designer and say you had a picture of a pirate, but you weren't quite sure like that it was finished yet, you could prompt Stable Diffusion through Photoshop to say, make me a parrot. And then that parrot can overlay and sit on the pirate's shoulder. Wow. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead of you going and searching for a stock library of parrots that you then have to cut out and then like Photoshop them in and stuff, like it's like, no, you can prompt it there and then in Photoshop itself, get your new asset and just blend it in.
So this is one of the things that, yeah, because I mean, look, my experience of this, myself and Jake, who sat here, we discovered DALL-E and I signed up to it and, I got the email saying, right, you can use it. Brilliant. And we thought, right, what can we create? And, you know, it was interesting, you know, a donkey in Mexico and a dinosaur watching TV. Because again, like you said, the creativity side of it. And we were testing it. And one of the tests we did was like, right, cats and dogs in a pirate ship by a lighthouse having a battle. And it didn't come out that great, I'm not going to lie. But when we discovered Midjourney, and then we started having a go on that, and then that's all about going into Discord, right? And that's all still working that out exactly, but
that's a very good point, mate. In fact, I would say, you know, these Oculus headsets, they're the massive barrier to entry with VR. You know, that's a 500 quid headset.
Yeah.
How many people have that much money? How many people have the technology, you know, the broadband and everything to be able to use it at this capacity? Discord is a massive barrier to entry for your average consumer. Now, what I'm noticing is that they're now going to be website prompts. So you don't need a Discord server. You don't need a Discord login. They're just going to be able to do it from the website. And you won't even need a login for that website. And it's becoming more and more available to people. And some are launching their own apps, which are like downloads for your phone, which is its own dedicated app. Others, I think Midjourney was very clever to roll it out through Discord, actually, because they realized very early on that this is going to be exploding. You know, they're going to get 1 million signups, and you imagine the amount of like stability that your newborn app has to have and how much money it'd need to have just to keep it stable for that much traffic that quickly. So I realized that they were basically bootstrapping themselves onto an already established server, because essentially that's what Discord is unlike every other social media, is your own private server that you can customize in any way. If anyone's listening to this and is like, what the hell's Discord?
Well, this is what I was going to say. I mean, can you advise people on how to get started on this and how to play about with it? Because Discord, again, on the surface, it's a bit scary. You sort of think, well, what's this thing doing to my computer? It's true, though, isn't it? I mean, it's...
Oh, yeah. Especially to no one that used AOL Messenger or MSN. Because they're the closest things I've ever seen to it, you know? Like, if you've used that, then if you're old enough to have used that, then yeah, you will sort of get where this is coming from.
And you get all these people messaging you and putting...
Oh, yeah, that part. You know, they don't explain that part, but, like, there's certain socials that are bot-friendly, i.e., you know, AI is a bot. Like, essentially, it runs through a bot, and you're talking to a bot at this time. So, obviously, it needs to be AI and bot friendly, that place, in order to have places like that. But Twitter's the same. You know, like, Twitter's very bot friendly, and so is Reddit and places like this. The ones that aren't are like Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, really. They are not bot friendly. And so anything that gets found out that is like a bot running in those places will be banned and culled. Whereas others, that's how they thrive. And so, like, Discord opening up that to bots and stuff is very clever, but obviously it comes with its downsides in that you'll get a lot of bot automated messages come through in DMs. But there's like a few YouTube tutorials, and you can just go through all your settings and stop all that. Honestly, Chris, it's like, don't accept messages that come from, you know, automated chats and yada yada. And so you can really just have it so that you are just talking to an AI in a private server. You don't even need to be in their public server, which is a big novice move that people make when they go into
Well, I think that'd be a concern for parents as well, though, right?
Massively, yeah, because anyone can prompt anything, you know, like and in the beginning I thought, oh God, it's really interesting, you know, because there's certain keywords you can't put in there.
Is there really? There's filters on it.
Oh yeah, there's a huge list of them. Like terrorism, for example, blood, different things like that. It will just say you can't prompt this. So to that parent degree, it's okay. But what they didn't figure is that you can type President Trump as the Joker.
Right.
You know, and then he's covered in like clown makeup and there's political figures that wouldn't want that, obviously, and that's really defamatory or whatever that word is, you know, like it's really not good for their like brand or anything.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So going back to the IP, then yeah, if these, because I mean, look, we've spoken, Chris, haven't we? The challenge sort of I set you was, can we get Honcho logo on this? Wanted to create something, and that was really hard because obviously it had never heard of Honcho or anything else. But
well, it didn't even know typography. That's now version 4 is like is game changing. That's what I'm figuring out really quickly, is like the exponential increase of this is nothing like you've ever seen before. It's gone from super basic art tool to doing typography that would take 35 hours in Photoshop. It's really gone that far.
And in what space of time?
Whoa. Huh?
In what space of time has it gone from that?
4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Because, and if you look at this and if you go really far down the rabbit hole, you know, exponential increases come from this amount of like data that they're gathering. You imagine that you have 1,000 people prompting 100,000 images a day. How many images are being made by 1.5 million people? You know, like literally tens of millions of images an hour are being made now via these tools.
And it's learning from these, right? It's learning as it goes.
Yeah, because it's always human feedback. Like, it gives you 4 images, then you art director as the human. You say, I like image number 1. That's the most accurate towards the prompt. So you're teaching it. You're going, oh, that's what the human liked. You know, that's the most palatable to humans. So next time it suggests that same prompt to someone else, it already has an idea. Well, the human chose prompt number 1 last time. Out of the 4 variants that I gave it, it chose number 1. So make an image closer to number 1. So you're training it constantly, and it's getting faster and faster and faster at the training. And eventually it just becomes so good that it starts to go spooky. Like, for example, I fed it my co-founder's LinkedIn profile picture and then asked him to make him look like a Disney character yesterday, and it's spot on.
Right, so you can now put images into it then as well, because one of the
this is another new
right
thing.
I was going to say that's one of the discoveries we found at first was like, well, can you put something into this and then generate it on top of it, right? And
yes, it's only just they took it away because it was so bad, Chris. Honestly,
okay.
So text to image is the normal way of using it. the other way is image to image, like you're describing. It was just so bad at reading the context of that image. Like, it just wouldn't pick out anything but the blurred elements of it, basically. So to create some like warped, and everything had this like weird horror look to it, because like the eyes would be off and the hands would be off, and everything was sort of like not appropriate to be used as a social post.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like turning on a light switch. It's like version 4 just dropped, and now it's like stunning at that particular thing. But it's regressed in many other ways. Like, you can't do pixel densities, you can't do aspect ratios in this new version of the beta now, because it's so good, like photorealism, but they can't blow it up with their server strength and stuff. So every new iteration, there's new challenges, and you're taking steps back and steps forward, and like going, oh, I could make this, and now I can't make that, but this is, the type's great, and like the logos are great, and now it can read images, it's great, but it can't do like, you know, the perfect LinkedIn aspect ratio. That's a good example. You know, it can't do those tall portrait images. It can only do squares right now of like 256 by 256 pixels. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's an ever moving, like shifting thing, like marketing is.
Yeah,
you know, like it never stagnates and stays still. Like, if you don't keep up with it, you get left behind. So even people that use like version 2 and 3 of Midjourney have no idea what version 4 is like. It's like restarting it all over again. It's quite incredible.
I mean, one of the main things you were saying is like we can use this for mock-ups, right? And
mass mock-ups.
What would be quite scary as a designer is like, you could produce this brilliant imagery as a mock-up that you couldn't create yourself, loves it, and then you go away, create a piece of shit, and they go, well, what's this? So you're almost reversing the...
It's funny, isn't it? Because you can go so far with this, and I wonder how far agencies will take it. Like, for example, GPT-3 in Jarvis is some of the strongest copywriting I've ever read. And I've talked to people with 10 plus years of copywriting experience that can't write as good as this thing. It's a large language model. I mean, how could you compete with it? It's literally got billions and billions of iterations of doing the right type of copywriting. So, I mean, ultimately, you could have the agency of the future having a suite of these tools. You know, one that does copywriting, one that does the image creation, one that builds the landing page for you, one that optimizes the landing page for you, one that does everything. So, I mean, they're not to be scared of displacing your job. They are to make you have a hell of a lot more output. Like, I'm honestly imagining this, and this might be something that I eat my words with in a few years, but I imagine as a freelancer, you could make £1 million a year if you could talk to AI. Because you could
be a copywriter, a designer, and a videographer.
Yeah, you're everything. You're everything someone needs to hire. If you're good at talking to 7 different types of AI, like a copywriting one, a landing page building one, an image creation one, you know, ultimately that's what they would hire. And so, yeah, you could have whole teams of agencies that are just AI experts at talking to AI, because ultimately it really helps if you're a graphic designer, because then you know shadows and textures, and you know composition, and you know lots of other things that do benefit you. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, Paul, my creative director, is the best Midjourney user I've ever seen. You know, no business development manager with no graphic design history is ever going to compete on his level. So if you're thinking, oh, you know, I'm really worried that people with no skill are going to have the same skill as me all of a sudden, it's absolutely not true. The best users of all this AI are art directors, graphic designers, and people that have got a history in this stuff. They're at a massive advantage. Because if I said to you, you know, what does Wes Anderson's pastels colors look like, and how would they blend together? If you weren't a designer, you would have no idea.
Yeah.
Whereas if you are a designer, you'll go, oh, it's like light blues and pinks and this hex color and that hex color, and they could, you know, tones could go here and yada yada. So you're already miles ahead of everybody else in terms of like, this is just an AI tool. You know, you need humans to get something useful out of it. It's not going to do anything on its own. It's just a blank page. You've got to give it what you want, and if you're not good at telling it what you want, you won't get out of it what you want. And that's as simple as it is, really, like broken down into the steps.
So one of in terms of like the barriers, so like we say, with imagery, it's a case of, well, who owns it, copyright it, you know, can you be a designer, create something in Mid-Journey and sell it as a piece of artwork to a client as an advert?
Well, there's very specific things on Mid-Journey. If you go and see their announcements tab on their Discord server, actually there's different terms based on how big your company is.
Right, I was going to say, so for an SME, you could easily create a burger van thing in this, but no one's ever going to know.
They're
right?
actually trying to help, and that's why it's really useful to know the history of these things, right? Because DALL-E, the one that you mentioned, is OpenAI as well as Stable Diffusion. Those guys, I don't know who their ideal customer is, but Mid-Journey literally says if you turn over £1 million a year, then you owe us 30% of any commercial that you get from this. Yeah, if you sell it through blockchain or NFT or something like that. Whereas if you turn under £1 million, they don't ask for anything.
So theoretically,
really
then you could sell them as NFTs or something, and just give them a 30% cut, and you're still making money from it.
100%, yeah. The problems may come is when those IP is something like Disney or Marvel or somewhere where their lawyers are going to go, well, what the hell are you selling Disney or Marvel NFTs for? So if you really want to go down the NFT space, or even printed merch or something like that, what you'd want to do is go for more vague prompts, that didn't reference a particular artist, didn't reference a particular famous person. They were just like hyper-realist cat, or, hyper-realist this, or you're choosing a general mock-up style which isn't attached to someone's IP. And that's really key. And I've been trying to do more of that myself. Like, it's counterintuitive, because if you think about it, for social posts, you want to use pop culture, right? Like, because that's what people know. And so obviously that's the best sort of social post to make. It's like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Baroque clothing, like I did today, or like Daft Punk cyberpunk, those two mixes. But instantly, cyberpunk, no one owns it. Daft Punk, massive IP issue.
Yeah.
So it would make a viral post. Then everyone wants it printed on a t-shirt, but that's not the one you can print on a t-shirt. Whereas if you made cat cyberpunk, no issues. Anyone could print that on a t-shirt, sell 1 million copies of it, no problem. No one's going to be chasing you, essentially, There's no Disney lawyers, there's no Marvel lawyers that are going to come knocking on your door, because none of that was in their intellectual property in the first place. Whereas, if you're using pop culture references, or anybody's name, essentially, if your prompt includes Van Gogh, Frida Kahlo, any of these names, you're instantly going to be coming, that's your barrier to entry. Probably social is the last place you should post it. Like, it's fine to post on social because you're not directly benefiting from it through monetization. Like, you're not actually, commercially benefiting directly off that image. You might get a lead for Honcho, but that's got nothing to do with the NFT, or art or anything. That's just, they like what you posted, and then they had a chat to you about your other services. There's no commercial ties there. Whereas if you literally posted it and then someone said, can you list this on OpenSea, like the NFT platform, and then you did do that, massive trouble. Like,
so what about copywriting? So obviously AI copywriting, Google's in their helpful content update, for example, they're saying we're looking out for this, but then you're saying a moment ago that it's some of the best writing you've ever seen.
Some of the best I've ever seen.
So how do you see that game going? Who's going to win that game? The AI or Google?
Google is AI, as I was just telling
fair
you.
enough.
So it's AI detecting AI, and that's what's interesting about this. When is it that we're going to start seeing on social media, Chris? This was made by AI. Because ultimately, they're going to have to flag all that stuff when it gets super photorealistic. Like
a bit like the influencers with their filters on their photos, right?
Exactly. Instagram literally rolled that out, didn't they? They said this is a manipulated image, and we can tell because we have a Photoshop scanning tool, and now we can tell that, that they pinched in their sides, or they reduced the weight on their face, or they did something like that. It's because, and I get it, completely, actually, from the perspective of like teenage girls and stuff. It's a mental health nightmare. If you don't know what's real, what's to, strive for, what's not even possible, what's AI, you've got no idea. So ultimately, I don't know how they'll ever tell that AI copywriting is by AI, because it's that human-like. It's actually crazy. Now, I'm saying that on behalf of Jarvis. I can't say that for any others. I've used some really crappy ones, and I think that's what's going to make the massive difference here, is that there's going to be AIs that are going to be indistinguishable from normal customer service, and then there's going to be really basic crappy ones. Like there are in everything, in every niche, in every industry. You're going to have your Google level people and you're going to have the startup level people. So, I mean, Google have actually had their own engineer worried about the sentience of one of their own AIs. And obviously that's easy to sort of convince someone as an AI customer service that you might be having fear of dread and stuff, emotions basically, because it's very good at mimicking us. Apparently the very first chatbot ever created, actually someone thought it was sentient because they'd never seen something like that before. So, it's not surprising that in 2022 we're already having premonitions of this thing having consciousness.
Right.
Because ultimately, when does intelligence surpass a level whereby it becomes conscious? We don't know. Artificial general intelligence is what all of these goals are, but they're not. They're dumb. Like, these AIs are so dumb. Like, you could make the best AI, and this happened, right? The best chess champion in the world got beat by an AI. It's called AlphaGo and Alpha something else. And, ultimately you think, oh my God, we're done for.
Hasn't that been happening since, the first chess machine?
This is what I'm saying. It's like all the predictions about this stuff have been very, very wrong. If you go and watch any 80s or 90s sci-fi, they think AI is going to be malevolent. They think it's going to be emotionless. They think it's going to be all-encompassing. And what is it? It's creative, it's emotional, and it's dumb. That's what it is. It's the exact opposite of what everyone predicted it would be. And who thought that it would crack creativity first? That's 20 steps after what you'd expect it to be good at first. That's so far. We thought we were special. We thought that we were special and that creativity was something it would never get a hold of.
Unique to humans.
How wrong were we?
Amazing.
It's stunning, isn't it?
Well, it's just amazing what it can produce. Like the images, like I say, that you share on social are just incredible. And, the best designers in the world would love to be able to create stuff like that. But like you said,
I think they will. I think they will. Ultimately, if you were going to play Grand Theft Auto or one of these giant games, that's just got a huge map, I'm not a gamer anymore, like Skyrim or something like that. Now imagine that you had games design characters that made 10,000 characters for that. And it's great, that took 5 years of development.
Yeah.
And all of their skill set and all of their hard work, and ultimately it could be a flop, like Cyberpunk, that game.
Well, Grand Theft Auto is a great example, isn't it? Because, you have the same 10 people walking around the city, basically, yeah.
Exactly. Now imagine that they were indefinitely generative and that they never repeated ever. You would play that game 100 times longer than you would. And it could be ultimately never ending. The world could generate faster than you could walk through it. So if you're going to be really good as a games designer in the future, you're going to have to be really good at talking to AI and how to make generative characters.
Yeah.
Of course, you're still going to be, designing those characters and giving them, just like NFTs are right now. You can give them all the characteristics and then make them randomized. You can fix them in different ways. You're training this thing, ultimately. You are responsible for training this thing. But it's just going to be a different methodology in which you do so, because games that ultimately only design 10 characters will die compared to ones that have millions of iterations that's never ending. It's like going from dial-up internet and saying, oh, there's this gigabit broadband in 2022, but you've got to go back to dial-up now. I don't think anyone's going back like that.
I'm plugging their house phone to get on the internet.
Exactly. How many people in the future are going to be buying games where they don't have generative characters in it? That's what I want to know. It's ultimately that's such a big step that you would not really buy the old school. It would be like buying a PS1 now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You might do it for the nostalgia. You might do it for the same reasons that other people keep doing. Why are there samurai sword makers still? Why does that still exist as a profession? Because it's nostalgia and they get really high prices. It's a really hard skill. It's a very labor intensive thing. It didn't go away. And that's what will happen with all of this stuff. No one's displacing designers. They just have to work in a different way if they want to be more prolific in the future. No one's displacing copywriters. They just have to be able to talk to AI if they want to be able to charge £1 million a year. Otherwise, keep going with your old school offline copywriting, and so be it. It'll become a rarer and rarer skill that's actually more and more valuable, actually. And people always worry about that. It's like, no, when the internet was invented, we didn't all stop reading books. Just because the internet's there doesn't mean that everyone stops doing the other thing. And that's what people seem to be getting wrong, Chris. I get really passionate about this because everyone's telling me lately, why do you work for a design agency and you're not, hating on all this AI? It's like, because it's the best thing since sliced bread, maybe? You're looking at this entirely wrong, mate, is what I tell people. Don't fear this thing.
I think it's going to say, because it is seen as a threat, isn't it? I mean, like you say, the copywriters
Massively.
think they're going to put
Everyone's seeing it as a
graphic
threat.
designers, videographers, you name it. It's not, but like you say, it's just using it in a different way. It's not like, no one reads newspapers in paper form, but they still read the news.
I honestly don't see why people see it that way. Like, every person that's tried to explain to me why they think that that's going to be such a bad thing, I can instantly poke holes in all of their things. They'll go, it's going to make people with a lot less skill be able to have, what I trained myself for 10 years to do. And then I give them that same thing that I told you before. I was like, no, actually, art directors are much better at using this than normal people. Like, your history of learning everything that you did is not for nothing. It's actually massively beneficial to getting the most out of this tool. And they go, oh, really? I had no idea about that. So, and then they're going, they're saying all this stuff without ever having used it. I'm like, have you even tried it? Because the people I know that are up all night and not sleeping and talking to their wives and stuff, these aren't just random people. These are art directors just like you, mate. The people that are getting the most out of this are people exactly like you. And then they're often going, oh, I thought this was like, everybody's just on this. And I'm like, no. If you look at the actual data and even the way they rolled it out to art directors first. They did it the right way, Chris. They could have just gone, right, all you illustrators, we don't care about you. All you art directors, let's just give this to the public, yada, yada, yada. And that's not what they did. They give it to the very, very good art directors first, made sure they got their feedback about it so that it was more appealing to people like art directors, because ultimately they know that that's the people that are going to use it in the future. It's going to be people that are using this for commercial purposes. It's going to be people that are using this to, get their business to more people, social media content. All of that stuff is ultimately going to be used for that purpose, not just by random people that want to see random images of dragons in China or
dinosaurs in an armchair with a TV remote, which is the one we did.
Yeah.
So what about video? Let's move on to video. So again, how can creators use this tool? Are we going to see much higher production style, influencers or whatever using AI video to create almost movie-like scenes on their TikToks?
It's because video's not actually available to the public yet. The white paper from Google came out 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So it's super fresh, and they've got some really fun examples in that white paper. I have read it. And it explains the diffusion, because it is hacking a 2D system. Video's not really ready yet. They're making 2D images 3D somehow. And they're using a very interesting sort of scientific algorithm in order to do it in cost-effective time, because otherwise it could take 3 hours to generate a video. Instead of the 30 seconds it takes to make an image, because it's tens of thousands of images layered on top of each other in 360-degree angles and stuff. So it's really much more complex, like the order of magnitude complex than making images. So honestly, to predict where that's going to go is very difficult, because I haven't even had actual alpha access or beta access to any of these yet. But the fact that Google's doing it is very telling. Why Google? Why them? I thought that they might go completely against all of this AI stuff, say it's completely,
Well, they know there's got to be a shelf life on us typing in words into a search bar, right? They've got to find their next thing. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe
the same way that you just mentioned, the Google update is looking for AI copywriting. Ultimately, Google is an AI company. It's from
they base their whole algorithm for SEO is
exactly.
learning all the time. You've got the updates like Mum, etc., which do that. Then you've got PPC now It's all
Right.
black box. It's all
Yes.
black box. And it's like you say, it doesn't put PPC people out of a job. It's about how can they strategically use that AI to get the best results. But their whole paid search model is going towards, Performance Max and things like this, where it's using its own AI to determine when it shows ads and what it shows in those ads.
That's what I mean. And so from that perspective, it's not surprising at all that Google is doing this. But from the perspective of like what you think is ethically correct and not, that's surprising.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if Google is the first one to produce a text to video image and they don't do all of the culling of and they'll find creative ways around it. Everyone does, like Trump and Joker. These are two people that are fine to be prompted and blended together. And so that creates like a very awkward image, honestly, it does. And you could plaster that all over social media. And so that is going to be the worry about all of this stuff, is that people will always find creative ways to get around barriers. Look at Grand Theft Auto as a great example. Like, they actually had like left, right, and then you get ultimate gun unlocks. Cheat codes.
Yeah.
Cheat codes. So yeah, people will always get around these things, and it's just surprising to me that Google's throwing themselves in the deep end of the swimming pool, as in they're going to get a lot of flack for the content that's made in their text-to-video generators. But ultimately, if they're the ones behind the first one, Chris, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I've already seen Silicon Valley, people, these big hedge funds and angel investors pouring billions into this. Because it's the new .com. No one saw this coming. Everyone thought AR, VR, one of these acronyms is going to be the next big thing. AI, in the beginning of 2022, hardly talked about. Now is probably sideswiping as the most digital thing of the future. In fact, it's hard to see with the Pandora's box open now, even if it got banned across the board. Even if USA government said no, UK government said no, it'd just go underground.
Yeah.
Everyone would be doing it in private Discord servers. You can't get rid of it now. To people like me, I've gone from being able to make one crappy Canva image a day to making 600 plus studio level images per day with doing a whole day of work, mate.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on my computer just passively art directing a tool in the background whilst chatting to people, whilst doing LinkedIn posts, whilst doing all my normal stuff. It's not even hindering me. I'm still just in the background getting 600 images a day if I want.
Crazy.
That's what's unbelievable about this. You've gone from having this output to just going boom. You literally could have as much output as you want. Some of them don't even limit you to making 10,000 images a day.
So do you have to pay to be able to have, a license to be able to create unlimited images, or, how does it work?
No, there's different licenses, and there's what's called they're all very different. With user interfaces for music software like DAWs, I used to work in digital audio workstations. So Logic is completely different to Reason, completely different to Pro Tools. You got to think of it like that. So in Midjourney, it's called fast hours.
Right.
And so they'll give you, depending on what tier that you subscribe to, you get a certain amount of fast hours, which just basically means it makes images faster. Is prioritizing your bandwidth with the AI.
Okay.
That's the way to look at it. And then in other places, yes, it's you have to subscribe to different tiers to get a certain amount of images out, total numbers. So it's not about how fast images are made, it's about how many you get as an output. And then there's others, which is open source, which you can literally get unlimited images out and you don't even need to pay for it. But then those images aren't quite the crisp level of Midjourney. So it's all about where you are, what type of car do you buy? If you're a Mercedes, I guess you're a comfort and a style and a fashion. If you're a BMW, then you're a speed and a whatever and a whatever. These are the things that you've got to think about when choosing your AI tools. Is what are the main features and benefits of the cost model versus what I want to use it for. So if you were an art director that really liked making stuff with AI, I'd go for DALL-E 2 because it's much more art directable. If you're someone like me who wants a crazy level of good-looking images that you just wouldn't believe, Midjourney is absolutely the one for you. If you're someone that already uses Photoshop and is, just wanting to add assets, Stable Diffusion, 100% of the way. And so, yeah, you're really going to choose based on what your use case is as to which one suits you best. I wonder when someone will create a tool which includes all of them. You know, when someone going to make a dashboard that has Jarvis, Midjourney, and all of that plugged into it, because that will be the next natural stepping stone. Is that someone just creates like a login whereby all of these are ported into one place. So instead of you needing to go to Discord to use Midjourney and then go somewhere else to use Jarvis, and it's all in one dashboard. You know, that's where I ultimately see it going, in a suite of tools, a suite of AI tools that you subscribe to, almost like Adobe Creative Cloud. Whereas like they bundle them in and you pay like $100 a month and then you get access to a bunch of these different tools. And you can sort of pick and match them as to the ones you want. Like if your agency does provide copywriting, obviously you're going to get Jarvis. If it doesn't, what the hell would you need it for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what's going to happen. So
Amazing.
Interested to see when that comes out and how much it will be. But the last thing I'll finish up with is, can you believe how cheap they are? Midjourney is $30 a month.
Wow. So it really is accessible to anyone, isn't it? And I think
massively accessible. The tech is the big inaccessible bit. You know, the Discord login server, the understanding Discord, the learning how to prompt. But, you know, biggest open library in the world, YouTube. You can go and learn everything you need in 10 minutes of a video there, honestly. Like, it's just about, then doubling down on it, because it's not going to be like anything you've ever used. If you've never used Discord before, it's not like any other social media platform. It really is a private server, and you've got to think of it like that. That's why I was giving it the MSN and AOL comparisons, because it's not like LinkedIn or Instagram, or you've used it, right? Like, it's not like any of that stuff. And you can build it out to be private, and you can build it out to just talk to the bot on your own. Like you're saying, if you're a parent worried about kids getting on this, you ultimately need to set it up for them as though you were going to put a lock on your internet or on your TV so that they couldn't access channels that were going to show them really bad stuff. Because ultimately that is where the public is at the moment with Midjourney on their own server. It's like anyone's making anything and you can't control any of it. Whereas if you invite it to your own thing, you can just chat to it one-on-one and only prompt what you want it to see, and you can never get any sort of like... That's a serious thing to worry about, though. Like, it is damaging mentally to see the images that people make. You know, whatever they feel like. It can be really, really weird, horror, gory. You know, it can be all sorts of stuff that you just wouldn't want to see in your normal daily basis at an agency job. Like, it's just...
It needs some sort of governance, doesn't it? And that's the thing. It's so early at the moment, but it does need some sort of governance,
It's the Wild West.
Yeah.
That's where it is. It's like we're in the saloons doing shootouts. That's really where it is.
But that's like, the exciting thing as well, though, isn't it, about what's happening in a minute? This is the beginning of something else. And if you can find a way of using it and understand it, then, you know, there's a really good opportunity.
I think you've just said the most important thing this whole interview, mate. If you get on it now, you're an early adopter. If you get it on it in a year, everyone's
doing it.
You know, so the hype's died down. There's already experts at it. You know, it's very hard. Like, I've noticed this as someone that's worked in digital for a long time. Like, any time that there's a new horizon, i.e. a new thing comes out, you will start from scratch. There is no experts. Like I said, you can have previous things that help, like design expertise and stuff, but they can only help you so far. You know, they're not going to make you any more of an expert than if you were just going to really get into it now. Like, if you had no skill set in this, no background in this, you could start from a standing start now and be, you know, get lots of traffic from social media because it's the hot topic at the moment. But that will die down. You know, no, don't get me wrong. AI will be bigger than social media. Like, it will change society more than social media.
Wow. So that's a big statement.
It's a big statement, but
get a picture of your name under it.
It's in every industry, mate. You know, it's like every industry can use AI. Like Google can optimize their servers with AI. It's going to do customer service. It's going to be a better chatbot than we are. It's going to be bigger than social media. Like almost, it's projected to be a 20 trillion industry by 2026.
Wow.
So that's all you need to know, really.
Yeah.
Is that like it's already projected to be bigger than social media in 4 years of launching. You know, to a public rollout, which social has been out for decades. So it's going to be like the TikTok to Facebook, like comparison. Like, You know, how long did it take Facebook to get 1 billion users? Well, TikTok just did it in 3 months. You know, like it took Facebook like 5 years or whatever to get to that many users, and TikTok just did that. So that's what AI is going to do. As soon as everyone realizes what this is capable of and how it could benefit their business, everyone under the sun is going to be using it. But right now, 0.00001% of people are using it. So if you're in that early phase, that's why I'm saying it's the most important thing. What we're saying this whole thing is like talking about it now is like when you can win from it.
Yeah,
if you join in 6 to 12 months, God help you, you know, like, I mean, you're really going to be struggling because there'll already be people that would be experts at it, and it's no longer got the hype that it had before, and there'll be just lots of things that will be difficult to get into it, you know, like that's why early adopters always win in this stuff. There might even be something better than it, you know, in 12 months, and then it's on to the next thing. But yeah,
it's crazy stuff. Right, Chris,
crazy times.
Insightful, head blown, amazing. What how can people see your amazing imagery on social?
Oh, cheers. Yeah. So on LinkedIn, we've got tons of theme pages. One's called Artificial Inspiration. That is where we just post Midjourney, DALL-E 2. So if you're really interested to see some visual examples of that output and just really where the algorithm is, like, because we always go into the communities and make sure it's on the day, like this is an image made that day. So it's the ability of the AI as of that day.
Wow.
That's where to find us on LinkedIn. Seedly is the overall agency page where we post other things. But yeah, my personal is Chris Branch with a little coffee cup emoji after, so you can't miss me. I'm also holding this exact coffee cup, but I photoshopped it to be in my Seedly logo there.
You need to Photoshop that hoodie in, mate.
Yeah, I do, to be fair. I'm loving this, mate, honestly.
Thanks
so much for sending it.
No,
I've been living in it, literally.
We need to get you another colour. We'll get some new designs out soon, and well, maybe we could do one from Midjourney or something. That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
I mean, now we've got type.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Last little bit I'll say, right? It can't do 3 letters right now.
Right.
L, I, and T.
Oh, really?
It can't, no. Every time I try and prompt an L, I, or T, it makes like an I with an R bit coming off of it or something. You just can't get those 3 letters for some reason.
Wow, that's interesting.
And that's what I'm saying about the AI ability. It changes every day. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure in a week it will be able to do L, I, and T.
You'll be able to do it by next Wednesday.
Yeah, well, yeah. By the looks of it, like, I mean, it's rapidly evolving, so God knows. But yeah. And that little umlaut above the O, when are we going to get that? Or, you know,
Well, yeah,
cool.
exactly, yeah.
Like, when are we going to be able to do special characters? Like, God, that would be really cool. Or barcodes. You know, like
the dream, wasn't it? It was get that barcode in there. Yeah.
I know, and yet it would always come through wonky, or something would be slightly off about it. So it's like,
We'll get there. Right, I'll let you go, mate, because I've already taken up too much of your time.